Hello, I'm Verdi Augusto, and this is the Schumann Resonant Harmonics channel on Facebook and on YouTube. And thank you for being here. Oh, good golly, it's Tuesday, I think we're on now. It's the 19th of January, 2021. Time is flying. And it was relatively nice, somewhat sunny, and somewhat kind of chilly later on. Overall, it was a nice January day today. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your stopping by, your coming here, and keeping me company, learning about the Schumann harmonics, resonance harmonics. We're taking a little kind of a scenic trip here from the usual. My guides told me that it's time to bring this material out. What's in the background here, about the dimensions and dimensionality. There are 4 other videos in this series, and so if you haven't, well, there's 3 that are have been done so far, and I think I'm going to have 4, 5, and 6, the previous one, this one, and the next one in a live stream. But at any rate, there are the videos with the information, just information, are by themselves. So make sure you watch the first 4 videos in the series to make sure you get a good understanding of what I'm talking about, and so you can go on further in the learning. I just want to say that. All right, so if you're here for the first time, thank you, welcome. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And just as a YouTube public service, if you want to see your regular channels regularly, go to the little bell under subscribe. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification that says all. And the algorithm works that the more you interact with the channel, the more it pops up as recommended for you. Your comments, your thumbs up, your sharing, your liking, these are all important in the algorithm of keeping the videos up, percolating up. And so the ones that you like, make sure to go back to the old ones even and watch them again and thumbs up them and, watch them all the way through and boost up the ratings and the algorithm of the person, the creator, and you will benefit because you'll see regularly updates from people. All right, so that's a YouTube public service, if you will. And knowing all that, please put that into action on my videos and like, share, subscribe, and comment on them. All right, so this is going to, I just want to hop right into the material here. There's no musical introduction. There's no whitewash. It's just, hardcore. We're in the middle of, kind of learning this material, or right in the beginning of learning the material, and we're not, kind of going to slower roll right now. Also thank you for the subscribers at Patreon and at PayPal who've allowed me to get a really nice microphone system in the studio so that I can be heard very, my wonderful voice can be heard in its fullest. So thank you, Jackie and Bonnie and David, Julie, who have all contributed to the cause, who've kept me here on doing this so I can be here in front of you. All right, so we're generally answering the question, what is 5D? Okay. Actually, let me get myself comfortable here in the studio. Okay, so generally speaking, we are dealing with the issue of what is 5D, and this is part 5 in that general overall question, and I have broken this apart into like subsections that, to be honest, it was not originally intended for broadcasts like this. I was going to do something else with it entirely, but the material here is all still, the core material is still all valid, and my guides said work on it on the run. As we're as we're going along, work on it, as we speak, as you are talking about it, work on it. And it'll be fun because it'll give people the chance to see the creative process in action. Okay. So, with that stated, this is a work, this right behind me here or next to me here is a work in progress. And it's, it's largely completed, but, organizing it, the ideas are all written down, but it's not really truly put out there to the public until it's been, organized, until it's been kind of, what's the word? Until it's been, organized in such a way that the people at large can benefit from it. Okay? And so that's where I'm at right now with that I have indeed. All right, I want to just kind of adjust this so I'm kind of in the, I don't like the gold in the background there, but it's like, all right, it's part of, no matter how I adjust it, I'm still going to get, I have to sit, it's just how the studio is laid out. All right, it kind of bugs me. It would bug me if I was in the audience watching it, but you know what? Hey, let's not let that bug us here. Let's get us on right on the track. There you go. There you go. Just don't go out of the frame, all right? It's within what you can do. How about that? All right. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Did I say that? Much appreciation for the comments, the love, and support. All right. So this was originally, like I said, a different kind of thing that was going to happen. So I'm kind of editing this on the spot to, encompass this type of a format. And I've broken this up into sections so that, even at an hour, all right, maybe that's not too long, but if I go longer than that, it's like, all right, I'd have to go through it in a few parts, So anyway, all right, so this is basically, we're answering the question, what is 5D? And let me go over kind of, a recapitulation of where we've been already in this journey. Okay, so video 1 is we talk about dimensions versus density. And as a recap, dimensions are invisible, formless, the infinite, until they are bounded or constrained by densities. Mathematical operations, such as irrational numbers, the numerical quantity 0 is a good example, are dimensions. Density might be seen as a repeating pattern or frequency of numeric values. Number values are 1 to 9, then they repeat. Repeating values, or a repeating value becomes, that should be B, it becomes a dimensional quality. Measurement is simply placement within the Cartesian coordinate system. Boy, there's a bunch of typos there. Measurements are not dimensions. Length, width, and height are dimensions. And we've gone through this. This is a review. Okay. Video 2 discussed the concept of dimensionality as moving between dimensions. Dimensions are qualities of emotional development. More than these are actual numerical quantities upon which you could stand. All right, I'll have to reword that. Video 3 gives us a small historical perspective on how we got to where we are now, much as this is the imposition of, this is the imposition of the square over and above the compass, or they call it above the compass, as imposed by the rule of the original builders of society. And we know what those are called by another name, or who those are by another name. Video 4 examines what is this concept of fifth dimension from the perspective of the function of dimensions. In this presentation, we will examine the I'm going to show that there's no external dimension except for the original builder's 4 primary imposed positions. Okay, so a lot of what we're, as I've mentioned before, when I forget to put in there the lexicon, I'll have to figure that out somewhere. But, one of the things we're talking about in this is building a lexicon of understanding, the vocabulary of commonality of understanding and what we're talking about. It's because it is a detriment to our growth, let's just say, to look at our spiritual growth in terms of dimensions that are based upon the imposed perspective of the 90 degree of the square as being the ruling paradigm of what's proper and what's correct. The grid. From that follows the grid, the Cartesian grid, the grid of the layout of the system, of the, streets and avenues upon which we live. Square block houses, cube houses. There's a lot of things that also go with it that keep your mind and body and spirit contained in a cube. And these things go like just on ad infinitum in society across the board in a number of different ways. The grid, the cross-hatching. I mean, I can't even go over it more, but, the dimensional, the ascribing dimension as coming from a square, a cube, or a 90 degrees, or a cross. Like, that's one of the signs as well of a 90 degree established, imposed order is a cross. Pretty much any and all cross, but they mean different variations of that, and what the wherefore and why the how the whatever, that all means different things, which I'm not getting into. But generally speaking, a cross indicates, among the other things, it indicates a path, a pathway, passageway, a crossing, a nexus point, a vector, these type of things that are necessary for measurement. Vectors are important for measurements. All right. Okay, so that's where we're at right this. That's kind of the introduction right now. And so 12:34. Okay, well there you go. Okay. Before we get started in the reading, all right, that was the introduction. Before we get started in the reading, I just want to say this is our Mandela color wheel. It's a dimensional color wheel. I made it with the help of my guides to help illustrate the difference of dimensions and dimensionality, and density. All right, there's different things that you can see in there, and if you ask your guides, they'll kind of help show you, and things that I talk about in the lesson will become kind of clear in there. This is a very kind of, it's a very deep, in-depth type of thing. It looks neat and fun and interesting, but there's a lot of sacred geometry and stuff in there that is, like they all are. That's kind of their thing. It's a mandala, it's really a very in-depth kind of pattern for where we're going, and then this describes them as, I have others of these that I may break out, but they're in storage, and I'm, it's like, all right, So this is kind of one of our visual aids. That's why the picture isn't moving, because it's like there's a lot to dimensions. I don't want to get distracted on moving pictures. I want to kind of focus on the lesson at hand. Was there anything? Okay, so, all right, we're at 14 minutes. So I've given the introduction on everything. I think I've given the historic kind of track of where we've come from, the narrative, if you will. And I've, generally speaking, given our stated clear intention of this, and I'm going to just ask for your permission, just for, a moment, to gather together with me in your heart and in your mind, and put aside preconceived notions of what you may have already known and already learned, and let your mind and your spirit both open up to what the guides, your guides, what my guides would have you know here in this teaching, right? You know, there's a reason I'm doing this now rather than waiting as I move as I'm told to move. And when I'm told to do something, you know, I do it. Eventually I do it, and, you know, I do what I'm told. And so this is simply what this is, that the material is there, it's ready enough, get it out there. And so it's difficult for me, you should know, this is difficult for me to have to go through and talk you through this, because I don't really have a lot of the right vocabulary and the words to describe what's necessary, but that is part of what the problem is where we're at now, right? Is that we really don't have the collective lexicon of love necessary to convey the concepts to each other internally, intuitively, that we need to help each other along in this process. You know, we're stuck with the old paradigm, the ruling paradigm of the square and the compass. All right. So with the love that I'm able to, that comes from Source, not from me. The love from Source that I can, to channel that to you from my guides and me to you, that I would offer you this humble message, you know, to you here. All right. So, all right. Thank you again. Thank you for being here. All right. So let's just ease into this. One gets the impression that when we talk about the fifth dimension, it's the next step. And as we are suggesting to you, thinking of this as, you know, like, oh, I'm not in 5D yet, or, you know, we got to work through 4D, and 4D is the lower astral, and all the stuff, working through it here now, right now. You know, how are we working through this idea of fifth dimension? And before I can talk about all right, I'm pontificating, hold on. Pontificating. Before I can talk more further about the densities and the dimensions, the two hemispheres of the head, getting those, you know, that's basically, when I talk about this, the densities and the dimensions, quantity and quality, right? When I talk about that, we're talking about the unification of the two hemispheres of the head. And that's what all of this is about, right? Just all of this. The experience for humans, getting the two halves of the head together in unity, the infinite and the extremely finite of the body. You know, we live 20 years. You know, Source is infinite. Like, how do you conjoin those two, right? Well, in a human, you offer love for whatever you can, and, you know, don't regret it. You know, so there you go. All right. So that's sort of what we're talking about here, is moving on and upward and releasing the old densities, the lower densities of the word associations that are holding you back. I think that's the best way to put it. That's the intention, part of the stated clear intention of this video. Excuse me. All right, so as I've said before, there is no external dimensions beyond the builder's four primary dimensions. Okay. And so the builder's primary dimensions, what are those? Once again, as a review. Okay, so like I said, this is ever a work in progress. And so, all right, so where are we? Hello. All right. So the builder's primary measurement dimensions are length, width, height, and then time. Okay. So we have, going into this, we have the first, you know, our real, so-called, quote-unquote, real world is based on the first three dimensions, which are measurements, uniform measurements, based off of a 90-degree angle, our axis point, our nexus, our arbitrarily imposed starting position of wherever it is. You know, it's where you place it is arbitrary, except where it needs to be. You know, there's a place where you need the arbitrary starting point placed, and that's where it all kind of bases. The logic of the system bases on where you establish like say Greenwich Mean Time, for example. So the so-called logical starting point is the establishment of the grid, the 0 point of the grid. Okay, so they give you the square, 90 degrees, length, height, width, and then time as this invisible thing. So remember, you have in a circle, you have 360 degrees, which is four 90-degree angles. So if you break up the circle, the sphere, which is the cyclical nature, right? Time as a cycle, not time as a linear, but time as a cycle. That's the second dimension, essentially. First dimension is time, linear time. Second dimension is time as a cycle, right? Like a wave, repeated wave. Then you have time in the nonlinear. Actually, you have time in the static wave between the two different waves. Then you have the harmonic is the third dimension of time, and then you have, or the third density of time, the third density of the dimension of time would be the harmonic. It's kind of standing there, but it needs two waves to do that. And then you have, after that, you have non-linear time. We're just pop in and out, boop, 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 from here to there. You're jumping, basically you jump, which is not necessarily a quantum leap, but then the next density of the dimension of time after that would be quantum. Just suddenly appear and suddenly disappear. Bing, 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 bing. You're blinking in, you blink out. Okay, that's sort of, and then you have time moving backwards and all this stuff. All right, so I've totally lost track of where I am, but anyway. So you have the 490s of the circle that you've broken up, length, height, width, and then you're left with the one invisible degree of time that has been robbed. It's been bamboozled. You've been swindled over that with that time, because that last dimension of time equals time is money, linear time. That's the first nothing in human affairs is moving forward without that dimension of time is money. That is linear time. Hasn't always been this way. Won't always be this way. Yet, right now, here and now, that's what it is. If you didn't take upon yourself the burden of the 3D, 4D, 5D system, you could be unburdened by the thought that the first dimension is money. Time is money, linear time, right? I mean, it doesn't exist, it's not such, yet in this world as it is, it now is like that. This is one of the things we're moving forth from. However, it's important to understand, again, this goes toward the unlearning part of where we were, and I'm going to be developing more of this in time and giving more depth to this, but it needs to be understood that this is where we're at in the progression forth in the dumping of the lower densities. Okay, so the clearing, where we're at with the clearing, involves understanding that you've been swindled over the first dimension of linear time. It's robbed you, right? They've robbed you, it's robbed you. Not giving credence to the, fourth dimension is linear time, just linear time by the clock, by the, everything. Fourth dimension is linear time, and fifth dimension is non-linear time. Okay? That's what we need to understand. So, if you meet, right, this is more than just whatever, listen. I'm going to say this just really simply. Cut through the bullshit. You and me here. 5D living is if you meet up with I gave this analogy before in the last video. You meet up with the right person at the right time with the right tool They're ready. They needed it. You had it. You connect with them. Out of an act of love, you performed a service for them with your effing crowbar. You didn't ask any money for it. You didn't take any money for it. You know, they may not have offered you money. Doesn't matter, right? I'm the guy with the crowbar. The universe. That boop. The logical skip of faith. The logical skip of your belief that I know I will be taken care of. That if I just do this, and then the universe rewards you and you accept it as a thank you for just like when you needed it and help was there for you, right? And the help is returned. That circuit, all of this that I just talked about, that is 5D living. There isn't anything else. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't anything else. And I'm going to tell you, I've already been through this process. I've come back, I've volunteered to be here to help people. You don't have to believe me. I don't care. I don't get extra points whether you believe me or not. I don't have any special place in heaven that I go to or any of that. No, it's here, it's now, that is it. This is it. This is it. You either can resonate with this or you do not. And it is that simple. That you are now living in 5D. If we talk about this, right, as we go through the math, I'll show you that if you, like, you just kind of put yourself to it, into it, you trust, you believe in something that is sight unseen, that the universe will take care of you. That is 5D, that when you act on it, you believe there will be a net there to catch you, that you will be provided for, and that the universe loves you, and ultimately, if you just act with what you believe, your needs will be met. Your physical, bodily needs will be met. Right? You do a minimum of care, a minimum of taking care of, make sure you pack a lunch, you do, there's your side of the street, there's your staying in your lane, and you take care of what you can take care of. But beyond that, like time, right? Like, again, the other person, how the other person's schedule is, right? So I just want to, as a public service announcement in this whole ascension thing, of tell you that I could even just end it on that note. That stop competing, stop looking at this as, I'm going to get into when am I and what is this and this and that. When you just believe, take your hands off the metaphorical steering wheel of you need to be in control of everything and we're working by the linear clock, like that kind of thing. Once you get off that, the clock, the devil's wristwatch, the invisible dimension of the bracelet there, right? Linear time by the clock, not your own, not trusting in your own linear clock of the heartbeat, right? Your first dimensional state of your own linear time, of your own heartbeat, right? Not trusting in that, but holding more importantly to the clock than the other people's respect or whatever, other people's, feelings or what have you, holding more to that, is you in 3D, right? Because there's that, I showed you, life is cyclical. And you have that invisible handcuff of the anchor of time, right? Linear clock time, anchoring you down into 3D. Because 4D, linear time, is the invisible completion of that circle. There you go. The circle of the wristwatch. Right? That's it. Right? It is its own thing. It is its own reward. You're on schedule. You're on track. Did you get what you wanted? Oh, there you go. All right. Should have listened to me. Well, whatever. All right. You got what you wanted. These kind of things. These conversations happen all the time. Well, are you happy now? You got what you wanted. No? All right. Well, you got what you wanted. All right. There you go. All right. So, as part of it, of getting 3D, as I got what I wanted, right? Come whatever cost, right? Getting away from that, getting away from linear time, getting away from the invisible handcuff of the wristwatch, the devil's handcuff. That's the wristwatch. There you go. Let alone a smart watch, one of those things that you Dick Tracy wrist. Don't even get me started on that. So this is just a public service, kind of breaking apart from the text here, because it's really important that I get this message across to you, that it's not how do I say this? It's not an issue of you, well, I'm not in 5D or any of that yet. The woe was me, or woe was us, we're all going to get there, or the people that have these discussions, philosophical, metaphorical blah of what 5D is, right? As a person who volunteered to come back here, right? I didn't have to. I was happy where I was. I chose to come back here because it's time for this to happen. And so I offer you my own experience, my own, benefit of the path that I've taken here, of how to rise above the morass of the swamp. Do what you want, believe what you want. I don't have any special place in heaven if you follow me or whatever. Prime Source Creator wants everyone to be happy. It's just that simple. We weren't created to be miserable. I'll just say that. God didn't create us to be miserable. God is part of us, is in us. And so if, we're miserable, God is miserable, right? It's just how it is. Like your kids. If you had kids, they were not doing well, if you think of it that way, it's like you can kind of get off of the moral high horse of the judgment bullshit. That's more of the crap, the God's wrath. Fuck you, Anyway, all right. So we're talking about the deception of the builder's dimensions, the builder's measurements that are foisted as that are actually the coordinates of the Cartesian grid system, or the grid system. All right. So there's only, when we talk about dimensions, there's only internal, the dimensions of ourself. Okay. Mind is temporal. The currently perceptive third dimensional matrix, oh, that's a mouthful, as imposed by the square and the compass tools, reestablishes the gridification of the mental constructs which precede actions and behaviors. All right, so another way to put that is living, how do I put this? All right, so it just kind of reinforces the protocol there. Living in streets and avenues. That should be an avenue, not an avenue. Avenue, okay. Okay. So we examine the spell, which is the enchantment of the Masonic Squaring-to-Right of our dimensional system. Okay. All right. So it's highly recommended that at this point you have seen, just whatever. All right. So if you haven't seen the first 4 parts of this, go and watch them. Basically, it's really important, to kind of make sure that the best you can to get up to kind of speed on where we're at with this right now, because it's just kind of getting a little bit more, going to get a little bit more intense going from here. So make sure you're caught up on the other stuff. Okay. Thank you. All right, so let us examine the symbol of the Masons. It's composed of 2 building tools, a square and a compass. The interpretation of these 2 tools as symbols is a session unto itself. Okay. Boop. What is relevant to us is the symbolic imposition of these two tools as weapons of conquering the folks under their spell. The square is the main tool used to convert or juxtapose measurement for dimension. As earlier stated, uniform inches of a side are measurements, not dimensions. Uniform units are measurements, not dimensions. The square shows one this easily. The three schools of mystery of the Masonic Order. There are 3 schools of 11 degrees, equaling in total 33.3. Okay, we all know this, yet some of us know the complete and total names of all the ranked degrees among the Masonic Order. All right, so each one of those degrees gives you, all right, so each one of those varying degrees, there's a name that's associated with it, your station, your degree, the degree you've earned on the 33, the ladder of the 33. What a lot of people don't understand is it's broken off into 3 segments of 12, essentially 12 pieces, right? You have, but that last one is where you're going from, it's the initiation phase of going from the graduation, right? There's a ceremony. So you need to be ready for that ceremony to graduate from one phase into the next and then off to the next. So that 12th, the 12th part of that, there's 11 degrees, and then there's one where there's that initiation. You get tested on the old stuff, and you get initiated into the new one. So there's an overlap of the 12th with the next, the 13th. That's kind of what this represents. As you have the 12, and then moving forward into the next one. Okay, the 13th. These degrees are co-opted, co-opting. They are co-opting and commanding the circular or the rounded, the curvy, the emotional, the intuitive, psychic, what I call the native gifts or the natural gifts of the body itself, the intuitive. Your gut feeling, the body knows, the cells know, your cellular memory knows. And lots of other gifts that are granted to the human DNA structure. This is part of the veil of illusion imposed by the draconian rule. And I don't think the draconians were the ones who imposed the veil of illusion. I'm pretty sure that was Lucifer when he came over to the other side. That's kind of what the message I'm sort of getting here. There are 3 phases of interaction between the square and the compass. All right, so these are the divisions of the exoteric, the egoteric, and the esoteric. Okay, so these correspond to the legs of the compass in relation to the over or the under of the square. The higher orders in degrees, one is allowed to understand the great mysteries of the sphere or the sephira, which is we start getting into the sephora, which they start teaching about the Merkabic field as you start getting on. So exo, what we're talking about, exo is outer. All right, where are we? Boop. So exo means outer, like an exoskeleton is outer. Ego is yourself. So egoteric is the mastery of yourself and your internal powers, right, holding them in. And then esoteric is the inner teachings, like the real deep spiritual teachings. So basically the exoteric is, you've got to have the right you know, that's where they teach you the handshakes, that's where they teach you the rituals, that's where they teach you all the window dressing of it, and you've got to get the rituals and all that stuff right and correct and proper. And the exo, you know, the 1 to 11 is the exo, right? And so then the egoteric, the me, the, you know, iso, it's also called esoteric, would be me harnessing my internal forces, you know, my mind, right? You know, my mind, the mental space, building up my mental space and building up my spiritual development within the whatever their spiritual thing is. And then the next part of that is the esoteric, which is the deep inner circle of how to control all of humanity. You know, it's sort of what it's now. All right. Okay, so the legs are it. So the legs of the compass, and I should have actually a model here to show you. I think maybe if I do it in the live stream, I'm going to have to get actually a model to show you. All right, so the legs of the compass are positioned thusly to indicate mastery over the degrees, the divine feminine as a principle and a being, underneath the two, I said 3 legs, the 2 legs. All right, so I'm gonna have to show this, I think. What we're talking about is the legs of the compass that are either above or below the square, right? So those are the 3, that is the symbolism of the 3 schools. That the compass represents, you know, the circular, the natural world. It represents also your emotional state. That's in the Masonic kind of teachings. That compass also represents your emotional state or the emotions of others. And so by you having more of the knowledge of the square and the measurement and how to think things, how to think your emotions, you know, you are brought out in front of or ahead of or above the compass. Okay, as you rise up in the organization, that's generally what that means. In the first degree, the exoteric classification, both legs of the compass are below the square. This square represents the everyday imposed grid upon our collective as stands. All right, so the exoteric, the outer, has, I think I wrote this incorrectly. The exoteric is the outer world. Okay, so the exoteric, you mastery of the exoteric, which includes your wife and your kids and all of that. So the legs of the compass are outside of the square. Okay, so that's what that is. So this is the square, this is the compass. All right, so you have that. Boop, like that. That's the first one. That's the exoteric. So the emotional state is the compass, the rounded, the natural world is the compass. And so in the exoteric, it shows the compass on the outside. The legs of the compass, or the points of the compass on the outside. That's the exoteric. Okay. The second one, I'm going to not read this here. The second one is the egoteric. That's where it's kind of mixed. You have 1 and 1. All right, so again, this is the square, and this is the compass. So you have 1, as you can see that, 1 and 1. Okay, 1 over and 1 below. That's what that's supposed to be. All right. All right, that's what that's supposed to be. 1 above and 1 below. All right. So this is the mastery of your own emotions, your own self, your emotional self. You are the center of this 11 part, you know, this phase of your scholarship in the order here. And then you have the next one is the esoteric. It's where the square is on the outside and the points of the compass are on the inside. So you and your organization is the ruler of your, the measure, your measurement, the measure of you as a person is the ruler over your domain. Essentially, that's what those three symbols mean. And by you, going into using the three dimensions, length, height, width, or length, width, height, as the three primary dimensions of how you are, when you, a person, talk about, we're going into 4D or 5D, and what you have in your mind is the base of these codes, 3D, 4D, you have in your base of the codes of what you've been taught by these guys, then everything else under that is diseased or punky or it's just foul, like the tips of a spark plug have been fouled by the debris, the debris that's been propagated by these guys. Okay, so it's important that if you're going to use the system of 3D, 4D, 5D, that you use it properly. That 4D is linear time, 5D is nonlinear time. And if you operate nonlinearly, you are in 5D, regardless of whatever else, right? As a first, foremost, primary kind of way to put your head in the right place, that if you operate on nonlinear time and you meet people at the right place, despite what the devil's wristband, the devil's handcuff says, then you're living in 5D. Okay, it's very simple. All right. Yet, all right, so I went through and this is just an introduction. I don't have the picture up for a reason. I don't want the picture of the Masonic stuff up for a reason. I'm just giving you a mental image. If you've seen the compass, if you've seen the square, this is for the advanced students. I want you to know, right? So there's some work that you're going to have had, know in your mind before you get here. I can show you, in some cases I can, but in other cases I'm like, you really need to have seen it. All right, but that said, all right, I'm going to put that aside. I may, during the live stream, when I do the live stream, I'm probably going to have an image of the compass and the square so I can show you. All right, but in this case, I'm not going. I'm just going to kind of keep moving on, trucking along. All right, so where am I? So this is, as yet, another introduction to a side topic. Okay, so, but it's sort of important to talk about this, though. Yet, in the refashioning process, we need to incorporate the symbology. We need to incorporate the symbology used into understanding the imprisoning mechanism. We dissect this symbol, again, the square and the compass, to provide a cure for or an inoculant against the mind parasites put in place by the draconian rule. Okay. To wit. All right. So the word draconian has been dragon, Drago has been around in our society for a long time for a reason. And there's also the word Kafkaesque, labyrinthian, bureaucratic, bureaucracy, bureau. These are all parts of the draconian. That it's my understanding that as a soul group, they are a negatively aligned soul group. However, there are those who have incarnated into the Earth School at this time to perhaps transition over, okay, into a new, a positive being. They weren't intending to stay negative in the form they were in. They, there is a thing with that as well. That not all the beings that have incarnated here were intending to be, completely negative and stay negative. So it's just a thing to remember. But that said, the labyrinth, there's a lot of this type of negative, lower density negative stuff that's needed to get cleared out. And this is one of those kind of things that we're talking about. All right. Onward and upward. All right, to wit, it will be conceded that in considering dimensions, one need to release the length, width, height as dimensions, but accept them as measurements in the coordinate system, if you will. refashioning the first three dimensions within our thinking system and our rational interactions with our days and those around us, we look to open up many dimensions out of pure necessity sometimes, releasing thought from attachment to the physical world, the length, height, width, as the primary dimensions, releases the ingrained, in-programmed, and conditioned matrix which has been a big part of the imprisonment of the species. And the word technology becomes salient. Okay. All right, so this looks like the end of part 5 right here. Okay. So I am going to play some music for, oh my God, we're at 50 minutes. I'm going to play a few minutes of music, not that long, just to kind of get us out of here. I don't know, I'm going to play like 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 10 seconds of music or whatever. Let's see what we got. We got anything here? No. All right. All right. I'm not even going to play music because it's not playing properly for me. And it doesn't like me for some reason. All right. Anything there? No, it doesn't like me. All right. All right. So anyway. All right. So I tried. I'm not going to kind of scoot it through. This is, this is kind of long enough. All right. So, and plus there's another video right after this. So maybe I'll stop and I'll play music in the live stream. I think that's good. And that way, those of you who are just here for the information, I think you've been here long enough. All right. So thank you all for coming today. I appreciate your being here to help make this a wonderful experience for me. Much love. Thank you all for the comments, the support. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the little bell underneath the the video. Share this with others if you can. Put it as a post to your your thing, because it's time. And also as well, there's a link. There should be a link in the description with the WordPress link that has the words, the text, all by itself, so you can read this all in one place, because I'm only allowed so many characters in the description. All right. Okay. So on that cheery note, thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.